Right, okay, well, 7th of July 2005, London bombings went off, and there were 3 underground stations and a bomb that went off on Tavistock Square. Now, few things that happened, 52 people were killed, plus 4 others, which was the alleged suicide bombers. Now, there was no inquiry into who committed the crimes. Tony Blair immediately said that there would be an inquiry would be a ludicrous diversion. Now, that's another disgrace. And instead, we've been told who is guilty, and we've had a diversionary inquiry later on down the line just about the intelligence failures, where the real agenda is simply to conceal the truth, as you say, just as it was in the Hutton inquiry for Dr. David Kelly. Now, there was a poor quality and anonymous official version of the London bombings, and that's deeply suspicious and unacceptable. And add to that, there's never been the proper inquiry, so you've got big problems there, Alex. And for the government to give us one narrative of 7/7 without allowing all the other competing narratives to be officially heard in the process, it's simply insulting. It's a disgrace. Now, a key thing here is the mock terror exercise that occurred. Now, this is fantastic, this. Peter Power, advisor consultant, when all the bombs go off, shortly afterwards, we're talking an hour or so after the bombs have gone off, this guy, Peter Power, from Advisor Consultants, goes on TV and announces this. He says that this is amazing. The terror attack, the terror training drill that we are into at the moment, where there's 1,000 staff involved, was simulating bombs going off at the exact same stations and locations as actually happened. Now, in statistical terms, Alex, it's as certain can be that a drill exercise matching the exact same locations and dates of the actual bombs, that could not have occurred by mere coincidence. Now, was that investigated? No. Should it have been? Well, you're damn right it should.
And by the way, we're going to break. We got 2 more segments.
Offers the insight that's needed to find out really what happened. And it's a disgrace that it...
All right, stay there, sir. We got to go to break, and we're going to come back and let you finish on that. We got one little segment in that first 5 minutes of the hour. Then we got guests coming in. We'll definitely have to have you back up in the future just to go over your own research. But absolutely, they ran drills on 9/11. Oklahoma City, they always run a drill to cover the real attack. You know, a lot of people engage in delusional, magical thinking. They think that you can just decide there aren't false flag terror attacks. I mean, you read the history of France and England fighting with each other and others. They were constantly doing it. Constantly doing dirty tricks against each other. Blowing up an ammo dump and then blaming it on the other. This is war. The issue is war is now being used against us domestically by our own governments. That's an act of war, shipping tens of thousands of firearms into Mexico, then blame it on the Second Amendment. And it's admitted the government did that. Okay, people, we need to grow up or they're going to keep using this tool. So this is a short 5-minute segment, sir. We got one more little 5-minute segment, and we'll have to have you back. But continuing talking to Tony Farrell, who was in his police department and also worked in the federal government as a top terror analyst, ran into all this false flag history and information. You'd gotten into the drills of 7/7, the exact same bus, exact same place, exact same time, exact same trains, exact same place, exact same time. Actuaries have been done. It's in the thousands of trictillions. That's, billions of times all the sand grains in the world. It's nearing infinity. I mean, it's the equivalent of finding a unicorn, a leprechaun, and Santa Claus in your backyard jumping rope. It doesn't exist. But please continue.
Yeah, the spineless, anonymous Home Office official version, that had flaws in it that subsequently the government had to admit that there were lies. The 740 ghost train that went from London to St Pancras that the Patsies were supposed to be on, but they didn't catch because the train never ran, and that was only an independent researcher that found that out later on and shamed the government. They had to change it, but they couldn't get the story to fit. So that whole sort of patch of the report is ludicrous.
And of course, why run the drill? Well, you've got some young Arab gentlemen who are working, with the government, who are teachers and things. They're taking part in a patriotic anti-terror drill. Uh-oh, something's going to happen.
Yeah. And then, Alex, I'm afraid at least one or two of those patsies were taken out and assassinated at Canary Wharf is the most plausible explanation. I certainly don't believe they were on the trains, and the military-style explosives on the trains. A far more plausible explanation than the so-called explosions on in the back packages that they self-detonated themselves in wonderful synchrony. So all of that seems totally ludicrous. The profiles of these bombers, the personification of these people was not such that these were going to commit suicide. And if they've got videos that purport that they were, I actually believe that was part of a training drill. So there's so many things wrong with it. And I think we look at the G8 summit on the day of Glen Eagles, and what on earth was Tony Blair doing a few hours later, coming on record when the police had announced that we don't know who's done this yet, but Tony Blair does. He knows this is being done in the name of Islam. Now, I think that is a disgrace. I think that is unacceptable. But I wish just good people in the UK would actually see it, because I think they're blind.
Well, it gets worse. At the Tavistock Institute bus bombing, it turns out there were people with fake bandages on who were seen before and then after with them off, covering their whole faces, being bandaged up. I mean, this was off the charts, insane and openly staged. And the reason they had to admit they were doing drills is because people who were part of the drill then start questioning what happened, but by seeing an authority figure admit the drill, then they think it's all out in the open. That's why Larry Silverstein admits they blew up Building 7. We'll be right back. Well, we got Matthew Medina and Cody Hess, great political activist, with a lot of news joining us coming up the next segment. They've also brought a friend along, Miss French. But we're going to be talking more in the future with Tony Farrell. He's got a website going up soon. He's going to be publishing stuff as an open source analyst for the people. We also need to support him in what he's doing there in Airstrip 1. Tony, you were making the point during the break to myself, you've been out for a week now, or 5-6 days, and no mainstream media in England. You would think this would be newsworthy, that a head analyst at a police department, a guy who was an analyst for the central government, the Home Office, comes out with this, and that they're staying quiet. They don't want folks to look into this.
On a lot of truth websites all over the world, in a remarkably short space of time, following the interview I did on richplanet.com. And I'd point out, Alex, there's an people don't have to take my word for it. They can Google, they can search the web, and there's some fantastic analysis. The Big Picture 7/7, The Ripple Effect, Seeds of Deconstruction. All these documentaries are so superior to the government versions, and people need to make their own mind up. They need to start looking, because there's utterly compelling evidence that makes the government version ludicrous. And we've had a recent inquiry, Alex, as you know, to look at intelligence failures, Lady Justice Hallett. And don't take my analysis, I've not gone into too much detail on that, but there's a chap called Nick Colostrum who stayed every day at the inquiry and has done detailed analysis that completely discredits the whole of that inquiry. And that needs to be seen and needs to be heard, because that inquiry never allowed any searching questions to be asked. Why not? And there's counter-narrative, there's analysis that ruins the inquiry's verdict. And if that's the case, we've got corruption in the court too, I'm afraid. And certain witnesses aren't being allowed to call, so it's all biased. So where do you go? We've got to get a breakthrough to mainstream media. We've got to get the public alerted, because I'm afraid, Alex, it's a bit like you say it is in America. People are just blind to it, and they turn a blind eye, and they're cowardly, and they need to wake up. It's hard as it may seem, but we can't keep silent any longer. And we need to put pressure. Through my court case, we can put pressure on one police force. The court, this is potentially one means to really put pressure on the government. So I think, Alex, there's going to be a truth movement behind the progression of my court case, and that might help. It might help putting good pressure on, because certainly 9/11 and 7/7 will be discussed in the court. At the pre-hearing review, we touched on 9/11, and my beliefs on 9/11, similar to yours, but the judge thought they were absurd, right? And he's on record as saying that. So we've got absurd beliefs, Alex, but we've got the real beliefs, I believe, is the gist of it. So that needs to be in the public domain, and we need to get the people to look at it.
All right, well, Tony Farrell, we just appreciate your courage and the fact that, you could have just gone along with the official story and not lost your job. You've done a lot more than most people would ever even think about doing, and it's going to be men and women of conscience who do stand up and at least have the courage to speak out against the lies that are going to turn the tide against this evil. I mean, all the lies about WMDs, the fake intelligence, the other staged terror attacks that have been declassified. If you've got groups that have done this before, and they have the motive, and they stand to gain, and only they can carry it out, and SWAT, the supposed head of the bombings, it turns out is MI6. I mean, even Fox News and Associated Press have covered that. This stuff comes out, and then nothing's ever done, and then you and analysts go, look at all this information, and they say, you're fired. I mean, it's incredible. Mr. Farrell, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to talking to you again in the future. We'll have you back as a criminologist to really walk through all of this, not just your case, in the near future. Godspeed.
Thank you, Alex. God bless.
Thank you, sir. We got guests coming in studio coming up. Stay with us. Ask yourselves, what are you doing in this time of great challenge? What are you doing to unlock minds?